Good morning. This is from High Commission of India and Brunei. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Can I know your good name, please?
My name is Neeraj, sir. Neeraj Sharma from CII.
Mr. Neeraj.
But your voice is, it's not too loud.
Okay. Okay. Now the voice is okay.
No, still, it's very weak.
Can you hear me now clearly?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. Just okay. It will start after 5-7 minutes.
Yes, please.
Yes,
Our
please.
video is clear.
Yes, sir. Very clear, sir.
Yes, sir. Very clear, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Kind of what?
Hi, good morning. Hello. Hi, good morning.
sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
The voice is clear?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
वेबिनार क्या है वेबएक्स
अब है जो हाँ अभी ये सेशन भी शुरू हो रहा है
कब करो
ये सेशन शुरू होने में 5 मिनट करना है कैसे नहीं हमारे दोनों मेरे एम्बेसडर ज्वाइन करते हैं
मैम म्यूट करिए
हाँ, तीनों फोटो भेज दीजिए बाबू।
I don't know.
Hello, CII, Embassy of India, Hanoi. Are we audible?
Yes, I'm
Yes.
audible.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes, Vinny.
Thank you.
Marut, if everybody's joined, shall we start?
Yes, please. We can start.
Okay. Thank you. So, very warm welcome and a good morning still in India, and good afternoon to some of you, and a very, very distinguished panel again, and welcome to all of you for taking out time to participate in this. I would think as to be one of the most outstanding sessions of this summit. Opportunities for collaborations in sunrise sectors is how we have this particular session termed as. We have a phenomenal panel. Our ambassadors, Mr. Jayant Khobragade, the ambassador of India to ASEAN, Mr. Ajanish Kumar, High Commissioner of ours to the Brunei, Mr. Devyani Khobragade, our ambassador to Cambodia, Mr. Manoj Bharti, our ambassador to Indonesia, Mr. Dinkar Asthana, ambassador to Lao PDR. We have Mr. Shambhu S. Kumaran, our ambassador to Philippines, and Mr. Kumaran, Mr. P. Kumaran, I don't see him on the screen exactly just now, our High Commissioner of India to Singapore, Ms. Suchitra Durai, our ambassador of India to Thailand, Mr. Pranay Verma, of course, our ambassador of India to Vietnam. We also have the Deputy Chief of Mission of ours embassy to Myanmar, Ms. Navanita Chakrabarti. And I also, am I missing out anyone in the screen? I see the DHC of the Indian High Commission in Malaysia, Ms. Archana Nair, also in the session. I guess I have covered all that I can see in the screen. So really an honor and a great privilege to have all of you to join us for this very important summit. And thank you for being here, and deeply appreciated by CII. And this is a very, very strong collaboration initiative between the MEA and the CII. But before we get into the discussions, I'm really happy to share that the summit has receives a fantastic response, actually, both from Indian as well as from the ASEAN sides. And we have, I mentioned this in the last session, but I'll repeat it in case some of you were not here, that we have had confirmations, and we will see participation of 9 ministers from the ASEAN, who of course will be sharing their thoughts with us in the next 2 days. And besides the 2 ministers from India, we also have 31 very strong Indian speakers and 25 very, very powerful speakers from the ASEAN countries. And I'm also delighted really to share that while in the preceding session, in which some of you were there, we had 6 heads of missions from ASEAN. In this session, we have 10 heads of missions with us. So it's really great to see this. And your presence in full strength is indeed a phenomenal reflection of the extreme seriousness of the government of India in enhancing the bilateral relationship between our country and the ASEAN. And indeed grateful to all of you. And if you see in terms of participation that we are having through this platform today, 500 odd in Indian participations from Indian companies, and 300 odd ASEAN delegates who are here. And for a maiden version of this event, it's indeed overwhelming, I would imagine. And the response really owing to a good collaboration, as I mentioned, between the Ministry of External Affairs of the Government of India and us. And I must thank each one of you, ambassadors and high commissioners, who have played such a very crucial role in making this really possible. And this session, what we are trying to do, ladies and gentlemen, we are taking up some emerging and sunrise sectors where our ambassadors and high commissioners see opportunities for collaboration with the countries that they are present in. And their insights and their guidance on the new areas will really help us at the industry to explore business potential in other countries. So India and Southeast Asia region has tremendous potential, as all of us in this particular conference definitely appreciate, to enhance trade volumes and enter into newer markets. And given the scale and the impact of the pandemic, India and the ASEAN must coordinate on the immediate priority for the region to overcome the impacts of the pandemic. And the post-pandemic economic landscape also that introduces new investment opportunities in emerging sunrise sectors. We speak about the Fintech or the biotechnology area or the digital infrastructure, as well as, of course, connectivity, artificial intelligence, and many. And India and, of course, the ASEAN region have common developmental goals and imperatives, and can build together to accelerate partnerships for leveraging new potential businesses. I'll just speak about a couple of, I'll highlight some areas. I'm highlighting it because this has come out in our meetings of business in India, our CII's ASEAN committee, a group of Indian businesses interested in ASEAN in our deliberations in the last few weeks, especially. And first, ASEAN, fast growing consumer market, with a very strong middle class and a population that is increasingly getting digitally connected. And as such, beyond movement of goods and physical connectivity, it is also important for ASEAN and India to explore different ways to enhance digital connectivity. So India's solid digital infrastructure and our really booming digital economy, rejuvenation of the Act East policy by engaging ASEAN through digital means, that'll prove indeed very, very advantageous. So I'd like to mention the new initiatives that we from the CII we have done to establish a center. This is a center for actually startups. We call it a center for startups, innovations and entrepreneurship, which is based out of Hyderabad, but it's a national center, and which is working towards propelling the startup culture and fostering innovation. And we are indeed very, very keen to work with our friends in ASEAN for two-way exchanges and learnings. And of course, we will work through our embassies to understand how this can be possible. The second, on the digital payment front, India really could share our experience in creating an integrated interoperable system with the unified payment interface. So India's engagement on this front with the ASEAN could really hugely be beneficial, as it would allow for seamless fund transfers across borders, incentivize innovations in payment systems, and also fintech companies to expand their scale and their operations, really. And the third point really I wanted to mention was on the trade front, where India, we can leverage the digital cooperation mechanisms to engage individual ASEAN member states through digital economic partnership agreements. DIPA really represents a new form of engagement and trade in the digital area, and it really aims to facilitate seamless end-to-end digital trade, enable trusted data flows, and build trust in digital systems. So really, we feel that businesses can look forward to benefits such as improved efficiency, reduced cost, and increased trust when conducting businesses and trading digitally with their overseas partners. My fourth and my last point is about fintech firms in ASEAN. They continue to have a very positive look as as the advancing pace of technology innovations that's really transforming the industry. And e-money payment transaction witnessed a very sharp growth as the pandemic accelerated the adoption of digital payments amongst consumers and merchants, and the trend is likely to pretty much sustain in the post-pandemic era. So certainly the Indian embassies are working on all of these areas. We know that, and we would like to know much more from our very distinguished ambassadors and high commissioners who are present on the progress in the bilateral cooperation in some of these sectors. And really, I'd like to now hand over, really call upon our very, very distinguished lineup of speakers that we have. And thank you once again for really making time and coming for this important session. Our first speaker, if I can call upon Excellency Mr. Jayant Khobragade, the Ambassador of India to the ASEAN.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Very good morning to all of you. I am so delighted to see all my colleagues, the ambassadors and high commissioners in the ASEAN member states and other colleagues. And ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. So I'm speaking here from Jakarta, from Indian Mission to ASEAN. So India and ASEAN both are among the fastest growing and dynamic regions of the world. And so the forum like this offers us an opportunity to strengthen our economic partnership by learning from each other and strategizing for future cooperation. Mr. Chairman has already given us a broad framework, and the areas under the sunrise industry which are identified are like digital connectivity, artificial intelligence, fintech, biotechnology, etc. Artificial intelligence-driven applications, precise predictions, and perceptions would be the key driving force in some of our deepest challenges, such as demand forecasting, resource allocation, climate change modeling, call for corrective actions, health issues, global warming visualizations, etc. The financial services companies around the world are moving towards AI and intelligent automation. AI with robotic process automation is helping the fintech sectors to its maximum throughput. Big data, cloud services, blockchain are scripting major digital transformation across spectrum of society, and a real revolution is on cards. India has seen disruptions in all these sunrise sectors because of a strong backbone of IT infrastructure, modular and scalable technology bases created by the government like Passport Seva program, unique identification number, DigiLocker, CoWIN platform, etc., with the involvement of skilled workforce, supportive legal frameworks, and over and above the vibrant private sector and an agile startup ecosystem. So Mr. Chair has already mentioned about the startup. Sunrise industry can play an important role in the commerce, culture, and connectivity, which are the three pillars of India's robust engagement with ASEAN. ASEAN has done a lot of brainstorming in this area, and most of it is documented in one or the other plans or strategies. To name a few, ASEAN Digital Master Plan, ASEAN Digital Integration Framework Action Plan, ASEAN Agreement on Electronic Commerce, ASEAN ICT Master Plan, and moreover, ASEAN Agreement on Electronic Commerce signed in November 2018 and ratified by all ASEAN member states, and so on. So these documents included ideas on developing the consolidated strategy on, for example, the fourth industrial revolution for ASEAN, implementation of interoperable cross-border real-time retail payment system, ASEAN interoperable QR code framework, ASEAN Cyber University, ASEAN Cybersecurity Cooperation Strategy 21 to 25. I would like to request industrial bodies to get familiarized with these documents and find how we can synergize our experience with the region. At the G2G level, we already have a structural mechanism for digital cooperation with ASEAN at working group level, senior official level, and ministerial level. Department of Telecom, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology is the coordinating agency from India. Currently, we have annual action plans which is approved by ASEAN India Digital Ministers Meeting. ASEAN India ICT Work Plan 2021 is under progress. Under ASEAN India Fund, we have taken up a few projects for cooperation in this sector. Currently, Department of Telecom and ASEAN Secretariat have been working on to develop project proposals for a few training courses. Besides core IT sector, if we think of our own successes in the application of IT in various sectors, especially agriculture and health, we have a lot of common grounds for cooperation. Right now, we are exchanging notes on the soil health card portal of Government of India with our partners in ASEAN. If this project materializes, it can be a big project in big data. This will also add value to efforts on low carbon growth. As is known, Honorable Prime Minister of India has proposed a line of credit of $1 billion to promote projects that support physical and digital connectivity between India and ASEAN. There is an opportunity to develop projects in the sunrise sector utilizing this credit line. So I will stop here and actually looking forward to the inputs from my colleagues. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I think I went on mute. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Khobrakade, for that very important overview and lots of information, a lot of work for us to do also. Thank you very much for really laying out the discussions that will follow in this particular session and also beyond. With that, may I now turn to our High Commissioner of India to Brunei Darussalam, Mr. Ajneesh Kumar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Banerjee. Good to see you, and thank you for inviting me. Distinguished guests, fellow ambassadors and high commissioners, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. When we speak about Brunei and we chart where exactly our economic relations and our business relations stand, we have to remember that we are talking about a country which has been dependent on hydrocarbon resources for over 90 years. From the time they hit upon hydrocarbon resources in the country and they started exporting. What we have seen in the last 2 years is a shift in their economic engagement with the world. Now, if I'm just going to give you 3 basic data, that will speak for itself. In 2018, the hydrocarbon sector accounted for 57% of the nominal GDP, which is roughly around $12 billion, 91% of exports, and 85% of government revenue. Now in 2020, on account of diversification and the efforts taken by the government, the same figures have reduced from 57% to 47% of the GDP. 91% of exports has come down to 82%, whereas the government revenue had come down from 85% to 60%. So what has happened? Now, during this time frame, we have seen, in tune with the Wawasan, which is the Brunei Vision document, which was launched in 2007, and it is a statement which seeks to take Brunei to a very high income, educated, and a country which has got other elements of exports and manufacturing beyond hydrocarbon. Now, all those statements give an opportunity for the country to diversify. And this is the area where I see an opportunity. Definitely, we are speaking about a small country of 4.5 lakhs, just above that, the population. But still, there are many elements and many areas for growth, as we can see from the new fertilizer factory which has come up. The natural gas was the feedstock provided by the country itself, and the foreign investors today would be manufacturing literally 4,000 metric tons of urea per annum. Similarly, in the agriculture sector, we see massive investments by countries in aquaculture, in cultivation of fruits, vegetables. The purpose behind all this is to do away with the dependence factor which this country had for many, many years. It was exporting hydrocarbon products and importing all manufactured and basic raw materials, including food materials. Now, we have certain Indian investments in the country by way of a company called Polygel and Atoll Oxygen. Both of them are using the local feedstock and manufacturing products which are exported from the country. Fintech is another area where I see a strong reason for us to engage with Brunei. They have launched their digital master plan last year, and along with the economic blueprint, which has been launched in January this year, there is ample scope for digitization. And here we have currently an engagement between NPCI. We are trying to see how the UPI can be tailor-made for this country. And they are in touch with a local company to see how it can be launched here. Now, the last thing which I would like to say about Brunei is that when we look at this country, we should also look at it from investment point of view. As a major ASEAN country, centrally located, strategically placed, it is a country small in size as far as population is concerned, but area is 5,500 square kilometers. There is ample land, and the government incentivizes in many areas for manufacturing sector to come up. And this is the area which I have been highlighting all the time, can we make use of this fulcrum, geographical fulcrum, and invest in this country, especially in areas like pharma, agriculture, and agri-food, which includes food processing, and of course, downstream petrochemical sector, since we have one of the biggest refineries of the region, the Hengin refinery in Brunei now. So without getting into sectoral areas, I would say that our engagement should consider both. While we trade, we should also look at investment in Brunei. Over to you, Mr. Banerjee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar. Thanks for those very important inputs, High Commissioner. Basically, yes, we have a huge scope actually, and there is because of the limited work that we have done so far as an institution and as business, and I think therefore we can do much more from the type of information that you have given to us just now, and the opportunities that you have listed for India with Brunei, and given the strategic location, and I'm glad that you raised the issue of both trade and investment. So thank you very much, and if time permits, we'll come back to you with a question from our audience. And with that, I move on to our ambassador to Cambodia, Excellency Dr. Devyani Khobragade.
Chandra Banerjee, Director General CII, my dear fellow colleagues, ambassadors from the ASEAN region, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you, a good afternoon as well to some of you. At the outset, I would like to compliment CII for organizing the Indo-ASEAN Business Summit and Expo, and also convey my appreciations for inviting me to speak today. It indeed gives me immense pleasure to address this virtual summit. Ladies and gentlemen, you're aware that India's ties with ASEAN are rooted in history and strengthened by proximity. Together, these are factors that help us in achieving a vision of a more connected India and ASEAN. Our Act East policy puts this region at the center of our engagement with the Indo-Pacific. The ASEAN is one of the most economically dynamic region of the world today. We have deep political and people-to-people relations with each and every country in the ASEAN and wish to bring our economic and business relations up to the same level. In the pre-pandemic period, ASEAN-India trade had jumped significantly. However, we still have a long distance to cover to reach the target of 200 billion by 2022. I believe the events such as the present one would provide an opportunity to exchange views on achieving our target set for the region. Coming to India-Cambodia relations, both countries have enjoyed very warm and friendly relations since time immemorial. The relationship is rooted in common culture, heritage, and religion. We have witnessed renewed warmth and understanding between the two countries since post-colonial period. Although both countries enjoy excellent political relations, economic interaction between India and Cambodia is somewhat limited. However, the bilateral trade, though small in value terms, has been growing steadily over the last few years. In 2020, the bilateral trade had reached 182.2 million due to the pandemic after touching US dollars 250 million mark in 2019. With more and more reputed Indian companies exploring the Cambodian markets by looking at it not as a small market of 16 million people, but as a gateway to ASEAN with a combined population of around 620 million, I'm quite confident that we are going to see an exponential growth in trade and economic relations between the two countries in the years to come. Seeing the innumerable opportunities available for Indian companies who would like to enter Cambodia, since my arrival, I've been focusing on increasing trade and investment between the two countries. To give you a brief overview of Cambodia, the country has experienced record growth rate of around 7% during the last 2 decades, and private enterprise is expanding at a rapid pace. More than 2 decades of structural reforms, a sound and stable financial system, and well-timed, well-targeted policy stimuli have provided crucial support for the Cambodian economy. As is the case with almost all countries in the world, While Cambodia's economy shrunk by 3.1% in 2020 due to the COVID-19 impact, Cambodia is expected to bounce back with a growth rate of around 2.2% in 2021 and 4.5% in 2022. The country emerged from the negative effects of COVID pandemic quite strongly and now is on the road to recovery. Economic growth is accelerating, inflation is under control, and exchange rate remains broadly stable, and international reserves continue to accumulate. Recent studies have shown that fintech, healthcare, digital infrastructure and connectivity, logistics, food processing, ICT, tourism and hospitality, cybersecurity, and energy and storage and distribution are some of the emerging areas within ASEAN and neighboring nations that can fuel future growth, encourage international collaboration, and increase job creation in the region. I would like our industry to look at the Cambodian pharmaceutical industry, which although remains nascent, with the demand met largely through foreign imports, can still provide opportunities for investment and export to the ASEAN nations. Economic growth, rising disease awareness, and gradual improvement in healthcare provisions are key market drivers for healthcare sector in the country. Despite challenges such as the subdued healthcare infrastructure and personnel, this sector will continue to grow and develop over the coming years in Cambodia. Private healthcare will continue to expand, giving the growing demand for medical treatment. The expansion of universal healthcare will also boost utilization of medical services, enabling greater proportions of population to access treatment and create improved opportunities for hospital infrastructure and drug makers. Despite Cambodia being a relatively young nation when compared to its Southeast Asian peers, the country suffers from a high burden of non-communicable diseases. The growing prevalence of chronic lifestyle diseases should see rising pharmaceutical consumption to treat those conditions. Pharmaceutical spending growth will remain strong in Cambodia in the next decade. Generic drugs will continue to play an important role given a low per capita spending on medicine. In Cambodia, whose size currently, the pharma market whose size currently is around 400 million, is expected to grow around 15% in the next decade. In Cambodia, the other newly emerging sectors, the logistics sector, which is seeing a robust takeoff. Global transport service providers are eyeing this untapped market in Cambodia, which is ideally located and can help in movement of freight amongst developing economies in the region. Situated between Thailand and Vietnam, two important production hubs in the Greater Mekong sub-region, Cambodia can play a vital role in regional logistic networks. The domestic logistic industry is on a strong growth trajectory. All the countries in the GMS are extensively involved in manufacturing activities. With rapid economic growth, the volume of cargo recorded at major airports in Cambodia has also shown significant increase over the years. Currently, much of Cambodia's agricultural exports are raw products like cashews, mangoes, rubber, cassava. Rather than investing in domestic processing industry, these goods are transported to Vietnam and Thailand, where they are processed. Just about 10% of Cambodian agricultural products are processed domestically. There are huge investment opportunities and room for gains in agri-processing industry for Indian players in Cambodia. Considerable business opportunities also in AI, in financial services and telecom services. The focus on digital infrastructure, although still lacking, creates opportunity for the digital infrastructure industry from India. Indian companies dealing in development of roads, ports, and airports also need to proactively tap this market and collaborate with Indian companies in this emerging sector in Cambodia. I would like to assert that despite establishing our diplomatic relations for almost 70 years and having such a friendly government, investment in Cambodia has been marginal and only around the range of 150 million.
Speaker link.
We we need to push, guide, and support Indian companies specialized in these sectors for collaboration with related Cambodian companies. I would therefore request Indian companies in all other sectors to look at Cambodia as a gateway to ASEAN with a combined population of around 620 million. In comparison to some of the neighboring countries, the situation, Cambodia is extremely business friendly. It has a very good it's an attractive destination for mid-sized companies looking for investment opportunities and setting up manufacturing base because of it's a low wage country with quota-free access to major markets. To expand trade and investment further, both countries are at an advanced level of discussion to sign a bilateral investment treaty to protect investor interest, and terms of reference for Cambodia-India Joint Working Group on trade and investment have also been finalized. We are also looking at a preferential trade agreement with Cambodia. And in this context, I would just say that just as Indian companies see significant opportunity in the region, I'm sure that the ASEAN business community would also recognize the tremendous business opportunity in India. India, of course, wishes to participate in the ASEAN growth story, and we invite all of the ASEAN to participate in ours as well. Before concluding, I must express my sincere gratitude to CII for organizing this virtual summit. I look forward to receiving valuable inputs from all my colleagues and also from the business community here that may lead to improving the India-Cambodia trade and commercial relations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you. And we really appreciate your points and your inputs, and also Cambodia, that the business linkages are limited and much below potential at this point in time. And hopefully with you there and with we'll be able to work with you and see a quantum jump, as you mentioned. And being at this platform, industry in India would also consider Cambodia as a gateway to the large ASEAN market, as you mentioned. And the sectors that you have really outlined today will be something that we will really be discussing today as well as beyond today. And our industry members would definitely be taking notes of the opportunities that you mentioned. And I'm happy to learn that Cambodia has really bounced back on the path of recovery after the pandemic. And from CII, we would really be happy to facilitate certain sectoral, in fact, in today's world, virtual missions, if possible, especially in the Indian pharma industry, to collaborate with Cambodia. So once again, thank you very much for your inputs. With that, may I move to our ambassador of India to Indonesia, His Excellency, Mr. Manoj Bhatt.
Good afternoon. Good morning to you, Chandrajit ji. Hello to all my colleagues, fellow ambassadors and high commissioners. Thank you very much for organizing this India-ASEAN Business Summit. I will stick to my to the comments on the subject that you have mentioned on the new and emerging technology and other things. Indonesia is marked within ASEAN as a country with the largest population, with 270 million people, with a democratic tradition. Indonesia is a country which offers a very large number of opportunities. It is unfortunate that our level of interaction has remained rather mild. In my opinion, it should have had a much higher level of commitment and interaction in Indonesia. With a trade of nearly $20 billion, even in the pandemic time, it is understandable that there is a lot of potential. And I would like to highlight here that though there are just about $1 billion of investment from Indian companies here directly, which is about 55 Indian companies, the indirect Indian investment in Indonesia is more than $15 billion. When I say indirect investment, it is through mainly Singapore. Many of the companies, Indian companies, find it attractive to invest via their Singaporean outlets to Indonesia rather than directly from India. we need to look at this particular issue, especially CII should look at this issue as to why the Indian companies cannot approach Indonesia for investment directly and are forced to go through Singapore. Let me go through some of these ideas one by one. Artificial intelligence is expected to add $366 billion to Indonesia's GDP in the next decade. The Indonesian government has declared artificial intelligence as one of the strategic technologies of its Making Indonesia 4.0 roadmap as part of the fourth industrial revolution. There has been a growing number of Indonesian AI startup companies that focus on developing AI-powered products and services based on AI technology. AI can be used to positively impact the 1.6 billion people living in India and Indonesia. There is a huge potential for collaboration between two countries in this area. As far as fintech industry is concerned, it is one of the most competitive and dynamic industry in Indonesia within ASEAN, as evidenced in the emergence of 6 unicorns and 1 decacorn in the industry in Indonesia. These new tech giants include one digital payment firm, OVO, while the rest offer a number of integrated payment options in e-commerce, ride-hailing, software services, delivery services, and travel bookings. I must add here that there is already a presence of Indian companies in some of these ventures, but this should increase much more, and there is a lot of scope in getting these unicorns in Indonesia up the ground and enhance their capacity. The country is home to 20% of all fintech companies in the Southeast Asian bloc, currently estimated at $40 billion with an annual growth of around 50%, and by 2025 the projected value is expected to cross $100 billion. The fintech industry is one of the most funded sectors along with e-commerce. With a young population of median age of 30.2 years eager to adopt digital technologies, Indonesia has the potential to become one of the world's largest fintech ecosystems. If we move to solar power generation, Indonesia's industry potential attracts $14.4 billion of foreign investment in this sector. A study by the Institute of Essential Service Reform, IESR, revealed that the national solar program, with a target of 18 gigawatts through the use of solar power plants, will attract investors up to $14.4 billion. This potential is considered to support the government of Indonesia's goal of meeting the target of 23% of the new renewable energy mix of 2025. Indonesian pharma market values approximately $10 billion, which is the largest in ASEAN region. As Indonesia does not manufacture APIs, the Indonesian pharma companies depend on import of API and other raw material. Import from China dominates with a share of 60%, and from India the share is 30%. Hence, investment in APIs is particularly promoted as a part of the transformation of self-reliance by Indonesia. When it comes to complex and highly technical products, Indian companies have an upper hand which needs to be utilized and exploited. Indonesia today provides greater flexibility for foreign players to invest in an active pharmaceutical ingredient sector. Indian pharma companies can capitalize on this push with their technology, knowledge, and expertise to set up formulation plants and API manufacturing facilities to reduce Indonesia's dependence on imported API. One company, in India's one company, Hetedo Pharma, is among the first players to tap the Indonesian formulation market with a local partner. With the biopharmaceuticals industry in Indonesia still in its infancy, trade in high-tech and biotech products related to serious diseases like cancer, blood-related or blood pressure-related, antiretroviral and others, API can significantly contribute to India's trade with Indonesia. There is also one sector which is little out of this line, which is in education. There is a huge emphasis in Indonesia in bringing industry to education and vice versa. There is a lot of push in bringing linkages between industry and universities for preparing the students who will be potential employers by the industry. There is a lot that can be done by Indian education related companies in this sector. The other point is, there is a line of credit offered by Prime Minister of nearly $1 billion, and if we consider the potential size and everything, I would imagine nearly $500 million to come to Indonesia. Unfortunately, since the time it has been announced in the last 2 to 3 years, there has been no utilization of this at all. And I would like Indian industry to focus on this and approach the Indonesian government with this utilization of this line of credit in mind. The third point which I would like to highlight at this, towards the end of my comment here, is that there is a lot of IT related solutions required in Indonesia after the pandemic. Things like vaccination records, how to make the vaccination record synergize between different countries to open travel corridors. There is a lot of things that can be done in this area, and Indian companies are quite ably suited to jump into this market in Indonesia. I would strongly recommend CII and CII's office in Jakarta to be active in bringing out small brochures of directories for companies which are individually marketed for a particular service. If this could be shared with the embassy, whenever I or my officers meet with different ministers or high officials, we can take this directory of these Indian companies and make them aware as to what can be done at a quick pace by cooperating with Indian companies. I hope some of these ideas can be implemented at an early date, because epidemic is not going to remain here forever. We must utilize this time and this window at the earliest. Thank you very much, and all the best for this summit.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And indeed, in Indonesia, the significant indirect investment into Indonesia is a point very well noted. Thank you. And in fact, this is also an issue which we are trying to address through our office in Jakarta, and which is working very closely with you. And the focus of the office is really to see how we can connect with our companies and our members over here, helping market facilitation for them, and also to assist with investments in Indonesia by our member companies. So we'll work with you very closely on this point. And the opportunity in renewables is also indeed very, very well noted. You have also highlighted pharma, and CI would be happy to facilitate this and the other sectors' participation in India, as was mentioned by you. I of course suspect this to be an uniform opportunity across the ASEAN countries. But once again, thank you very much for bringing out some very, very important points, and look forward to a deeper and a continued engagement with you. Thank you. With that, I come to our Ambassador of India to Lao PDR, Mr. Dinkar Asthana, for his remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Banerjee. Am I audible?
Yes, please. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for the introduction, and I must congratulate my other colleague ambassadors for setting the tone for this session, and in particular by outlining ASEAN-India cooperation, which has considerably shed much light on our cooperation with ASEAN. And let me also update you first on how Laos is managing the COVID-19 pandemic. We are now in the midst of the second wave since the middle of August, and there are a few hundred cases every day. And for a country like Laos with a population of 7.5 million, even these numbers are big. But we congratulate the government and people of Laos for managing the pandemic very well so far. And the vaccination rate is high, and the mortality has been kept very low. And we hope that Laos will be able to return to normalcy very soon, and people will be again able to engage in their day-to-day activities. But however, even we do not know how the pandemic will play out, and economic activity which generates people's livelihoods must go on nevertheless. And coming to the ASEAN India Business Summit, I'm happy to see that it is shaping up very well. And considering the importance of the summit, the Commerce and Industry Minister of Laos, Mr. Khampeng Sayasompeng, has confirmed his participation in the special plenary session with ASEAN trade ministers, and he will address the summit. India and Laos also share long-standing religious, cultural, and people-to-people linkages, and diplomatic relations as modern nation states go back to 1956. And we are celebrating the 65th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Laos PDR. Moving to the main topic of sunrise sectors, it will be generally acknowledged that the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the pace towards digital technology. More and more activities are taking place online, and digital technology and technology in general has been employed more and more for interactions and for other things. I must share here that Laos and India are cooperating quite well in the fintech sector. Many Indian IT companies are already supporting some Lao banks to develop digital service delivery platforms which are more suited in the changed economic landscape due to the pandemic. There are also some other exciting opportunities in e-governance and financial applications that are being explored to improve service delivery in Lao PDR. In particular, the government of Lao PDR has authorized mining of cryptocurrency and has authorized 6 companies to do it. And I'm sure Indian companies would also like to consider this sector. Maybe it will open up more. Laos is also going ahead with experimenting with a digital currency, and the Japanese company Somaritsu is doing a study for it, and there may be opportunities for having a seamless payment system between India and Lao PDR in the future. And lately we had a meeting between NPCI International Payments Limited and the Bank of Lao PDR to consider how our payment systems could cooperate. We also have a Center for Excellence in Software Development and Training, excuse me, which was established in November 2018, and it imparts training to government officials, and in particular in artificial intelligence, ethical hacking, data communication, etc. And we are keen to see how we might utilize this center for excellence to mentor startups, and I'll like to see how we can use the startup center set up by CII to do some mentoring at the Center for Excellence in Software Development and Training, because even the Lao government is very keen to mentor startups and and generally promote information technology and entrepreneurship. In particular, Laos has good talent in robotics, and their school teams regularly win robotics competitions abroad. And we would like this is one area apart from artificial intelligence and bitchain and blockchain that you would like to work together with Laos for mutually beneficial cooperation and link up our entrepreneurs. Pharmaceuticals is another exciting sector because Laopedia being an LDC, which will graduate to being to a developing country in 2025. It mostly relies on at present the medicines it relies on are often patented medicines and cost and the cost is very high, and there should be good opportunities for our generic medicines to find a market here. Also, it may be possible for our traditional medicine companies to grow herbs here and process them here and export to the ASEAN market, because Laos by itself is a very small market and might not of 7.5 million. So any Indian investment that comes here will perforce have to look at the ASEAN market and and the market of Laos's neighbors. And we are apart from that, we are also interested in improving connectivity. And as my senior colleague Mr. Bharti just said, that there's a small correction here. The Laopedia has approached India for a line of credit out of this $1 billion investment by our Prime Minister for a road that links up the northern city of Luang Namtha with the Lao-Myanmar border, and this process and the proposal is being processed by the two sides for a line of credit, and I am confident that it will go through in the near future. And if we improve road connectivity with Laos, it will also promote people-to-people contacts and as well as tourism, and it will decrease the driving time to less than 24 hours if we can have a good road through Myanmar. And I hope that this proposal will come to fruition in the near future. Apart from this, the government of Laos is also looking at other sectors, in particular the solar energy sector and the renewable energy sector to generate power. As you know, Laos intends to be the battery of Southeast Asia, as it likes to call itself, and electricity is its largest export. It is exporting electricity to Vietnam, to Thailand, to China, and also to Cambodia. And this is one sector in which it prides itself, and there are good opportunities for our engineering goods to be installed in the many hydropower plants that are coming up. And in fact, engineering goods is the largest export item, and under the HS code head, that is being exported to Laos. And apart from engineering goods, agricultural exports, in particular of buffalo meat, holds much promise for Laos, because Laos can re-export it to other to some of its neighboring countries under the various quotas it has. Another sector which we like to look at is is our auto parts. For instance, Bajaj has just introduced some of its vehicles here, Mahindra's vehicles, and they find application on hardy terrains, and especially in mines. So auto parts and automobiles is also another sector which our companies can look at. And at present, the bilateral trade between India and Laos is very small and fluctuates. But we hope that it will increase later on, and we are trying to do all we can to promote exports, as well as in particular after the pandemic, as we hope to start a direct flight between India and Lao PDR. The air services agreement has already been concluded in 2019, but unfortunately after that the pandemic intervened. But after the pandemic, we hope to start direct flights between India and between Indian cities and Lao PDR, which will also promote tourism and people-to-people contacts. People will also know about each other's countries, because at present the only route to India is via Bangkok. So from the mission side, we have done a number of online events and put businesses in touch with each other on agricultural sector, on auto parts, on pharmaceuticals over the course of the last year. And we will continue to promote sector specific interactions, including buyer seller meets online. And there is also much scope for Indian companies to invest in many of the special economic zones that the government is promoting in Lao PDR all across the country, on the Thai border, on the Vietnam border, and I urge Indian companies to look at investing in these special economic zones. All the information is available online on the various incentives that are being given. So in conclusion, I would like to say that although our interaction with Laos, despite linkages through Buddhism and religious linkages over the ages, it has been very small, but it seems to hold a lot of promise in many sectors, and growing from a small base, it should not be easy. There must be quite a bit of low-hanging fruit which our companies should come and take and make use of. At least we should try to promote trade and economic interaction, and it should not be very difficult. But Laos is just a country which has not been really looked at by Indian companies, and vice versa. So in conclusion, I would only request Indian companies to look seriously at Laos. Despite being a small country, it offers a good business climate, and the government is keen to promote investment from abroad. And I hope this event will contribute to increase of interaction between India and Laos. So and I wish Laos will also get attention over the next few sessions over the next 2 days, and I wish this summit all the best, and my congratulations once again to CII for organizing this event, and we will keep in touch and work together with CII and the Ministry of Commerce to increase linkages between India and Lao PDR. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Astana. Thanks for some very interesting and some very useful information. Certain things which were really not known in our was outside our radar. And yes, indeed, small and not much has happened, but yes, huge scope. As you mentioned, the Center of Excellence that you spoke about is indeed a very good opportunity, and our own center would certainly look at how we can work together. We shall also look forward to the line of credit fructifying connectivity. And I'm sure our industry, our member companies here who are participating, and many others whom we will talk to, would take very good note of the SEZs that are there in Lao and the incentives which are being offered. And you talked about certain very interesting areas like blockchain, robotics, AI, which we will also explore as we go along with you. So once again, thank you very much for those very important inputs. I now move to our ambassador to Philippines, Mr. Shambhu S. Kumaran, for his remarks and inputs, please.
Very good afternoon, Mr. Banerjee. Lovely to see you. And greetings to all your colleagues at CII, and thank you, as like all my colleagues did, for this platform and this opportunity and the invitation. I'd also like to warmly greet all my colleagues in ASEAN. It's wonderful to see them. I haven't seen many of them in many years now. And also to the ambassadors of ASEAN countries in Delhi who are participating, especially my dear friend and esteemed partner, Ambassador Ramon Bhagat Singh. Wonderful to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to probably keep this a little brief, try and focus a little more on the India-Philippines relationship, because my colleagues have spoken considerably about the ASEAN framework. I would like to claim that we are possibly at the cusp of a significant transformation in the India-Philippines relationship. And I think there are a few reasons why it is happening. Firstly, I do see the emergence of very strong strategic logic for the partnership. The Philippines is really a frontline state in the Indo-Pacific. And I do believe that the Act East policy and Prime Minister's Sagar framework dictates a stronger engagement by India in the Philippines, because we do have a very strong interest in a stable and prosperous Indo-Pacific and ASEAN at the center of that framework. Secondly, we do have a very strong leadership level connect. Both Prime Minister Modi and President Duterte are very popular mass leaders who have driven significant reform in their own respective countries. And I do believe that they do understand each other well in the conversations that they've had, and they do understand the rationale of this partnership. Thirdly, we do have a set of shared values with the Philippines as one of the most well-established democracies in the region, and a country which, like India, is focusing very strongly in the development of the bottom half of the pyramid. It's the second most populous country in ASEAN, with a very strong need to build on its developmental goals. And interestingly, it's also focusing, like India, on using digital technology and leveraging digital technology to bring about this change. Thirdly, of course, we do have a strong demographic, linguistic affinity with the Philippines. We both very large English-speaking countries, very young population, and very energetic societies. Lastly, I would say that there is a strong similarity in our economic structures. Our economies are private sector driven, consumption-led, a very strong presence of the service sector. So these significant complementarities in these various elements provide a compelling rationale and logic for a much stronger India-Philippines partnership than has been in the past. And what we've been doing, along with occasionally with CII and other partners, is building on two strong tracks. And I focus on the economic relationship. Of course, there's a stronger line of effort in terms of political dialogue, defense and security cooperation. But on the economic side, we are looking at stronger B2B linkages. And I want to thank CII and all the colleagues who are here for their continued engagement, because we've managed to hold a series of events despite the pandemic. And I can say with some degree of confidence that there is a growing awareness and interest among Philippine business to engage with India. We've had the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is your counterpart, as well as sectoral organizations like these sectors see in India, you have CI and FICCI and other chambers, but in the Philippines, in addition to PCCI, there are strong sectoral chambers as well, which are very active in business. And I think we should engage and continue to engage with them. We've had a series of events, bilateral business conferences, very well attended from the Philippines government and business. And I do believe that these events, whether it be on infrastructure, on renewables, on marine fisheries and aquaculture, all of these events, Ambassador Bhagat Singh also listed a few more, all of these events have created a stronger B2B dynamic. And I believe it is in our interest to sustain this momentum. From the government to government side, we've been supporting this B2B dynamic. There was mention about the possibility of a preferential trade agreement. The terms of reference are under discussion. We do see that there's a strong economic and trade rationale for a PTA. The Philippines is the third largest economy in ASEAN. And we have not been really able to tap into the opportunities that exist here. We've also been working in terms of investment promotion and facilitation in both directions. Of course, Indian investments in the Philippines, considerable in IT-enabled services. Almost all our leading companies are here. Quite a few pharma investments, some investments in manufacturing, and that's growing. But interestingly, of late, we are seeing Philippines companies investing in India. I'd like to mention the Ayala Group investment in renewable energy. They've invested in 3 projects with an overall investment of $400 million. And the AG&P investment, which eventually is Atlantic Gas, and that investment is probably going to work up to about $1 billion all told over a period, because this company is going to set up gas distribution networks in various cities of India. And there are many other opportunities that I'm sure, as the Philippines conglomerates look at India, there could be a lot more inward investment opportunities as well. We've also been working very closely with the Department of Finance in the Philippines on a template similar to what has been done with Singapore, to look at how we can link our fintech ecosystems. We've been talking about payment and settlement systems. We've been talking about direct benefit transfer using digital technology, the Indian JAM Trinity. And it's being very well received here in the Philippines, which is also trying to drive its financial sector digital transformation. We just renewed our air services agreement. And I believe that once tourism resumes, in 2019, there were over a lakh of Indian tourists in the Philippines. And I believe that this number could go up considerably. There are 15,000 Indian students studying here. And increasingly, I feel that as the Filipinos look abroad for travel opportunities, they are enthralled by India's culture, its food and spirituality. And I think that that would potentially be another strong driver for direct air connectivity. Agriculture is another key area. The Philippines used to be one of the leaders in ASEAN on agriculture in Asia itself. And I believe that they are looking for a new narrative. India is a wonderful model, both in terms of the similarity of our agricultural structures, because we have fragmented land holdings, we have lower levels of mechanization and other problems. But the way in which India has been leveraging digital technology is something that is appealing considerably to the Philippines. And we have a very strong dialogue led by Mr. William Dar, who is the Agriculture Secretary, who some of you may know served for 15 years as the DG of ICRISAT in Hyderabad. And across the agricultural space, whether it be in terms of digital storage, agricultural storage using renewable energy storage systems by an Indian company called EcoFrost. There are space-based solutions for fishermen to go fishing. A lot of these innovative digital technology ideas are being used, big data-driven ideas are being used in Philippines agriculture. And I think this will be a very strong driver of our agriculture partnership. I do hope that we can continue to build on the range of MOUs that we've had and the joint working group meetings that we have recently organized, whether it be in terms of tourism or the trade and investment. We have agreements in place. I think Ambassador Bhagat Singh mentioned on renewable energy, customs, and various other areas. And we've just also recently opened up a small pipeline for grant-funded Indian projects. I do believe that this can showcase the best of India's technology to the Philippines through pilot demonstration projects, and that can bring in a lot of momentum. So where is the action? I've given you the setting as to who's playing, what's playing. So where is the action? Of course, the action will be in the digital space, especially in Fintech, frontier areas like AI and data-driven activity, e-governance. Some of you may know that one of the Indian companies is the lead systems integrator for Philippines National ID project. That's a very large project. EduTech, Tata Consultancy Services is driving a lot of interesting activity on the education side. But there are other companies too who are beginning that engagement. So I do feel that across the digital space, there are plenty of opportunities because Indian companies know the Philippines ecosystem well, having been present here. And as Ambassador Bhagat Singh said, they're employing close to 150,000 Filipinos. This is a very large operation currently oriented towards markets in North America, but it can change to being a factor towards greater India-Philippines engagement. In addition to digital economy, I believe that agriculture will be a growth area for the future. Philippines is now one of the largest importers of rice, and I want to record my appreciation for the efforts of the government here to reduce the tariff, the MFN tariff for rice, to open up a level playing field for Indian rice exporters. We spoke about the blue economy. We had a specialized event on it. Tuna processing, Philippines is a leader in that area. We're inviting their investments into India. Indian aquaculture is in great demand, our skills and capabilities in the Philippines. The third sector is renewable energy. We again had a specialized workshop. The Philippines is committed, like India is, to a changed climate sustainable model of growth. And I sense that we could have potentially, I mentioned about the investments by Ayala in solar energy, but I do sense that we could also be a supplier to the Philippines for various solar energy related projects, wind energy related projects. And there's also Thermax of India is already implementing over 10 projects in the Philippines in biomass. So there's an enormous amount of opportunity in the renewable energy space. Infrastructure is another area where I believe we can do a lot more. Under President Duterte's build projects. Of course, the GMR Group operates Philippines' second largest airport. They constructed yet another terminal in Clark. They are looking out for more airport projects, railway projects. I did get interest from Indian companies involving themselves in the railway modernization projects. This being government driven, we would see a bit of a lull with the elections coming up, but I think as soon as that brief period when the government is unable to take major decisions is over next year, there will again be a very strong momentum towards new infrastructure projects. Unfortunately, I believe we missed the first wave in 2017, 2018, where very large numbers of projects were awarded. But now we are also finalizing a line of credit arrangement with the Philippines. We're at an advanced stage of discussions. And once that pipeline for soft loans is available, I do see Indian companies coming into the Philippines in a very large way for infrastructure projects. Lastly, health and pharmaceuticals. One thing that COVID has done for India and the Philippines, it has brought India front and center in terms of the value of the India partnership for the Philippines. I think Ambassador Bhagat Singh mentioned it. The Philippines is India's largest pharma market in ASEAN, $250 million and counting. I sense that given the Philippine market of about 4 billion, we can easily take it up a notch. The vaccine story is also well known. Covaxin, Philippines was the first country to grant emergency use authorization. Reflects a degree of regulatory support for Indian pharma here. We want to continue that trend because one of the issues is bottlenecks in the regulatory pipeline. So digital, agriculture, renewable energy, infrastructure, health and pharma. Those are the 5 areas that I would be looking at and what the embassy is very strongly focused in supporting. To conclude, just a political point, I think that the post-COVID world will be very different, but India and the Philippines look well placed to overcome the challenges. There are strategic realities in the Indo-Pacific. There is a mutual desire to reduce over-reliance on a single source, to look towards more secure and reliable supply chains. And as part of that diversification, I think India is emerging as a very strong possible partner for the Philippines. And I sense this in my dialogue across government and across the private sector and even among common people here. India and the ASEAN will remain, as we all know, the most dynamic economic growth drivers of the world economy. And this new age of engagement between India and the Philippines is dawning rapidly. And I believe that the Philippines partnership can be one of the driving partnerships in ASEAN. So to my ASEAN friends, India is here, India is near, and we are capable. Under Prime Minister Modi's Atmanirbhar Bharat framework, you'd see a stronger, very engaged India. And I do invite all our friends in ASEAN and the Philippines to continue this dialogue. So thank you very much, CII. I look forward to supporting whatever activities you have.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar. And thanks. Great to hear that we are indeed at a cusp of a very much stronger relationship with the Philippines, and the shared beliefs and strong government relationship, as you mentioned, between the two countries. Interesting also to hear about the economic similarities and Philippines companies investing in India. Very, very nice of you to talk about that. Areas like blue economy, renewable energy are indeed areas of interest to our companies, our industries here. And therefore, we shall work on these besides infrastructure, where we are already seeing activity from Indian companies. I am glad that you talked about to us about the sectoral chambers, and that's something that we would be happy to do it when we have in our fold about a couple of 200 actually sectoral chambers in India. But we will definitely engage with them. As you said, that was really a detailed insight on economic partnership between our two countries. And we will, from our institution, we will continue to sustain and expand the B2B connect between India and the Philippines under your leadership. And we have really noted all those areas for us to drive partnerships. Digital technology, you mentioned, you talked about agriculture, renewable energy, fintech, of course, AI, aquaculture, infrastructure, health, pharmaceuticals. So it's really a huge area of work that you have given, and thank you very much for that. Really appreciate. Thank you very much. With that, I now move to our High Commissioner of India to Singapore, Mr. P. Kumaran. You're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Banerjee. Pleasure to see you again after our discussions a few days earlier with the CII core group for your discussions with the counterparts in Singapore. It's also a pleasure to meet my colleagues online. We get rare chances to see each other these days. And also my greetings to your other participants and colleagues from other missions in Delhi and elsewhere. Let me, as you know, India and Singapore, the area and the range of possibilities for cooperation is huge. I will try and focus on a few areas after a couple of sentences about India and the ASEAN region in general. As you know, India and the ASEAN region have enjoyed strong cultural and trade links for over a millennium. In 1992, the relationship was suddenly turbocharged with a series of policy initiatives, including India's first ever comprehensive economic cooperative arrangement with Singapore. This was followed by several bilateral FTAs with a number of ASEAN countries, as well as the India-ASEAN FTA that came into force in July 2015. With ASEAN, from dialogue partners, we have now become strategic partners over the course of the past 25 years. As a result, ASEAN is today India's fourth largest trading partner and accounts for more than 1/10 of our total trade. In turn, India is ASEAN's 7th largest trading partner with bilateral trade at over $86 billion. Investment flows are substantial both ways, with ASEAN accounting for approximately 18% of investment flows into India since 2000. Singapore, of course, is the principal hub of both inward and outward investments. As far as Singapore is concerned, it is a key enabler of entrepreneur trade and also hosts the regional headquarters of hundreds of international companies. India has sought to leverage Singapore's strengths in finance, manufacturing, marketing, and services, thereby allowing us to use Singapore as a gateway to Southeast Asia, as linkages with Singapore-based MNCs can help Indian corporates expand their reach globally. Since the signing of SICA in 2005, the India-Singapore partnership has witnessed a significant expansion. Singapore has become India's largest trade partner in ASEAN. It is India's 6th largest trade partner globally, with a share of about 3% of India's overall trade. Over the last 20 years, the total investment into India from Singapore is about $118 billion US dollars, accounting for nearly 22% of the total FDI inflows. Singapore-based investors have assets under management valued at over $100 billion in India. Temasek Holdings' India portfolio is today estimated at $14 billion. This represents an increase of nearly $5 billion from just over a year ago. The scope for further increase in investments from Singapore is immense, given the regulatory uncertainty that has got global investors worried about the situation in China. It is also noteworthy that more than 80% of our listed offshore bonds by Indian issuers are listed on the Singapore Stock Exchange. Over 8,000 Indian companies are registered in Singapore, while over 440 companies from Singapore are registered in India. The large presence of Indian companies in Singapore is also reflected in the outward FDI from India to Singapore, which is about $75 billion between 2008 and today, making Singapore one of the top destinations for Indian investments across various sectors. Even during the pandemic, Singapore has retained its position as the largest source of foreign investment in India. While India received a total of about $81 billion during financial year 2021, Singapore was the biggest investor with 29% of this amount. Over the years, Singapore has rapidly developed its capabilities in key sectors such as advanced manufacturing and engineering, urban solutions and sustainability, health and biomedical sciences, services, and digital economy and fintech. Singapore's value as a partner is enhanced by the fact that it is ranked #1 in Asia for innovation and #8 globally. Singapore also ranked #6 in the world in 2019 in high technology exports, which include products with high R&D intensity, such as in aerospace, computers, pharmaceuticals, scientific instruments, and electrical machinery. Singapore maintains a strong focus on the development of advanced manufacturing skills as part of its pivot towards Industry 4.0. It is willing to partner with us to upgrade our industries, including MSMEs, and make them Industry 4.0 compatible. We should enthusiastically enter into such arrangements to prepare our industries for the future and strengthen the Make in India initiative. We also need to constantly look out for technologies of interest and to create partnerships for mutual benefit. For example, as I had mentioned in some of our earlier interactions with CII, a Singaporean company named TES has very good recycling technology for e-waste, especially lithium-ion batteries. Given that India is one of the largest generators of e-waste in the world, and also the huge anticipated growth in the EV and battery market in India, such a technology should be of serious interest to us. We should also be looking at the broader question of how we can partner with Singaporean companies having such innovative technologies, how to bring them to India and to scale them up for mutual benefit. There is also a big opportunity for our industry bodies to emulate Singapore's framework that brings together R&D, academia, and industry for collaboration and skill development to effectively meet the needs of advanced engineering sectors. I'm aware that CII is already talking to Singaporean counterparts on that. As we discussed earlier, if we can find a way to develop a facility for training the trainers, which can further be plowed down into lower level training centers in various parts of the country, focused on specific sectors, I think our gains can be multiplied. Countries and businesses have begun working on minimizing supply chain disruptions, triggered mainly by three major trends: the ongoing pandemic, geopolitical tensions, and emerging concerns relating to sustainable development. This has led them to reshore or nearshore operations, pivot to new methods and technologies, and also diversifying FDI partners in a way that minimizes sourcing risks. Diversifying sourcing options, along with the management of geopolitical risks, has led to the announcement of significant regional initiatives for enhancing the resilience of supply chains. This also opens up new opportunities between India and Singapore, given Singapore's standing as a major regional logistics hub. Singapore's financial hub status, high levels of success in developing vocational skills and knowledge of the ASEAN market, combined with India's long-term growth prospects, land availability, and a large and young workforce willing to work at affordable wages, offer complementarity that can be exploited for mutual benefit. Let me try and point out a few more potential areas for collaboration. India's huge forthcoming investment in infrastructure offers big opportunities for master planning for large infrastructure projects, industrial estates, and tourism projects. Singapore is a good partner also for island development initiatives. Singapore has shown interest in participating in developing the International Buddhist Circuit that we are talking about, the International Ramayana Circuit, and also the new resort development initiatives coming up in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. There is also an opportunity for contract manufacturing in India by Singapore companies as part of the Resilient Supply Chains Initiative in various countries. The China Plus One opportunity, the attraction of a large domestic market in India, and the fact that there are new initiatives being taken by the government of India, such as the PLI scheme, seen as a very, very positive move in Singapore. All this should lead us to think if it is possible for us to leverage Singapore's standing as a credible supplier to collaborate with them on some kind of a manufacturing partnership, especially to look at exports to third countries, such as in the Middle East or in Africa. Outsourcing of services, it's something that has been a big deal for India, both cross-border services and which is counted as Mode 1, and Mode 4, which is movement of professionals. Increasingly, we are running into political difficulties as far as movement of natural persons is concerned. This may require us to look at redesigning work processes, modularizing them in such a way that as far as possible, you can design work processes to retain our workforce in India, only look at sending people out to deliver projects to the minimum extent possible in order to avoid getting into political entanglements in areas where it is avoidable. So this is something where there is further study required in the coming years in terms of redesigning work processes and modularizing more complex work methodologies to try and separate them in some way to optimize benefits to us. Singapore, of course, is a major regional financial center. Singapore Stock Exchange wants to link capital markets more closely with us, including promoting offshore trading of Indian stocks and listing by Indian companies in Singapore. SGX also wants to add more tech companies from India to its index. Currently, SGX provides facilitation and funding for late market companies, especially at the pre-listing and the IPO stages. In some cases, they have also supported by defraying costs of listing. I understand that SGX has recently completed such a project with Thailand, and they want to look at India too for collaboration. This, of course, has some sensitivities as far as India is concerned, particularly on due diligence, our continuing capital controls in some areas, implications for national security, etc. But there is a big opportunity on the horizon. We would need to study it in greater detail. Logistics is another major emerging area, as I mentioned earlier. We need to press the accelerator on speedily completing our dedicated freight corridors, both in the east and in the west. Singapore companies such as Mapletree are keen to develop logistics parks in India. We need to develop hassle-free land allotment mechanisms for such parks. Companies such as Mapletree, their own reputation brings very good clients, global clients, and helps them set up facilities in India. Digitalizing customs procedures, especially to ensure that to the maximum extent possible, we achieve pre-arrival clearance for as many products as possible. Going in for blockchain-based solutions for customs documents to be and shipping documents to be as reliable and tamper-proof as possible. That's another emerging area. Singapore wants to become a carbon services and trading hub. It wants to catalyze sustainable financing and investing. And the attraction is that Singapore's capabilities can help the region as a whole. Singapore wants to support green bonds by growing the green fintech space and encouraging green fintech solutions in general. They want to be a part of the rulemaking, including developing consistent green taxonomies, harmonizing international standards on sustainability reporting, mandating environmental and climate risk analysis as part of financing assessments, setting up a sustainability or ESG rating system, and so on. In fact, Temasek reached out to us a few weeks ago, suggesting to us that they would like to partner with India for developing a carbon credit exchange in Singapore and to understand how it is possible for us to work together. A couple of other quick points. Agriculture and marine products, again, there is a lot of interest in Singapore, given their own strategy of diversifying supply chains. India was one of the few markets that remained open to Singapore at the peak of the pandemic in the middle of 2020. Singapore has offered advice and technology in the area of low-cost recirculating aquaculture systems, disease management, diagnosis, and prevention of marine products, using digital platforms, export of soft shell crabs, and lobster hatching and breeding. These are some areas. I'll quickly list out a few other areas without going into great detail because my colleagues have spoken about these. Fintech initiatives, we're already talking about the use of RuPay cards in India, very close to implementation, last stages. There is also an initiative to extend Pay Now to be able to work in India. That's another ongoing project. The startup ecosystems on both sides are extremely vibrant. We're talking more and more about how to get them to work together and enhance interoperability. Pharmaceuticals and vaccines are another great area of interest. Smart cities, water and waste management, ports and logistics, I recently mentioned. PSA is already very extensively present in India. There's more interest. Smart manufacturing, infrastructure development, PPP model, there is a lot of interest from Singaporean REITs and infrastructure investment trusts. The concerns seem to be the fact that infrastructure projects offer lower returns, political issues, past experience, etc., regulatory uncertainties, they need better assurances. Electrical vehicles and batteries are another emerging area. Additive manufacturing and 3D printing, Tourism master plans I just mentioned earlier in my remarks. Data centers, another big emerging area. Singapore is one of the largest hubs for data centers in Southeast Asia. There are concerns about the fact that we currently restrict data flow from India to other offshore destinations. There is increasing interest in signing data partnership agreements. AI, ML, and IoT are other emerging areas. Cybersecurity and wireless laser communication. RailTel, Indian Railways, is already talking to a Singaporean startup to set up railways telecommunication using a new wireless laser communication technology that this startup has developed. So these are broadly the areas that are emerging. I'm sorry I couldn't go into great detail on some of these areas, but I think I've already exceeded my time. Thank you very much, Mr. Banerjee, both to you and to your team, and wish you all the very best for the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Thank you very much, High Commissioner. Thank you. But I mean, as you know very well, Singapore continues to be on the top of the choice of our member firms and our member companies for internationalization. And we will continue to work on Industry 4.0, healthcare, urban solutions. You talked about fintech, logistics, skills. I mean, it's such a huge scope on skills and training with Singapore, and also, of course, innovation. We've noted the various new opportunities, if one can say, which are really now we are going to talk to our members, our industry here on marine products and aquaculture, urban mapping and development, tourism, including island developments, outsourcing of services, digitization of logistics, green fintech solutions. Thank you for mentioning that, carbon storage and sustainability also. But these are all great points, and thank you very much for mentioning that. 22% of FDI AUM of over 100 billion aspects, which are really indeed very impressive. And hopefully COVID will not disrupt all of that, and Indian industry will really I mean, definitely rather look at leveraging Singapore's strengths and look at it as it has been in terms of India's gateway to Southeast Asia. And your point of just wanted to mention the point on you're minimizing supply chain risks. That's very pertinent, and the potential opportunities that it has for given Singapore an opportunity to become a very important logistics hub. So thank you very much, and we'll continue to engage with you and seek your inputs and of course your leadership in seeing to it that we are able to take this relationship forward in a manner in which it has grown over the last many years. So thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
With that, I'd like now to move to our ambassador to Thailand, Ms. Suchitra Durai.
Thank you, Mr. Banerjee, and to the CII for giving this wonderful platform.
I think there is feedback. We'll probably have to shut down or lower the volume at the receiving end. Ambassador Durai. And I think you've gone back to mute.
Can you hear me? Is it audible?
Yeah, now it's
much better.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Banerjee, and to the CII for organizing this wonderful meeting. I've been able to gain a lot of insights from the previous speakers, as well as, of course, my counterpart in Delhi. So I shall not dwell on much of what I had written, which was, of course, our traditional relationship between India and ASEAN and its growth trajectory. But come to the point, as far as India and Thailand are concerned, very old trading partners, a long history of friendship based on linguistic, cultural and religious ties. But of course, everything moved on the basis of trade and commerce, which continues to be the core of our relationship. India and Thailand are maritime neighbors, and this is something that always comes to the fore whenever we go to the western part of Thailand, and we see that it's only the Andaman Sea which connects the two countries. And therefore, with increased port connectivity and direct-to-direct port links, which is what we are working on. And an MOU was signed, in fact, between several ports of India's eastern seaboard, Chennai, Visakhapatnam, Kolkata, with Ranong Deep Sea Port. We see the possibility of greater trade and commerce increasing in a multiple fold in the times to come. The other aspects are there, Thailand itself is, of course, the second largest economy in the ASEAN and in the greater Mekong sub-region. It's an open, market-oriented economy, and its trade has benefited from its own free trade agreements with 17 countries, including India, apart from the fact that, of course, with 9 other partners in ASEAN itself. Bilateral trade between India and Thailand was a little less than $10 billion in 2020-2021. Naturally, the COVID-19 pandemic affected our bilateral trade, and we saw a fall of about, say, 20% in our bilateral trade. But after this initial disruption, what we see in the first 5 months, in fact, of the current financial year, we've seen bilateral trade grow hugely, and we've already crossed 5.34 billion. So at the rate at which we are going, we are quite confident that we will cross the bilateral figures of 2019. There is, plenty of potential, as has been mentioned by my other colleagues. So I think definitely trade between India and Thailand has a lot of potential to grow, probably double in the years to come. Thailand has traditionally been very strong in some areas, including in agricultural technology, also in the processing of marine products, in electronics, in the automotive industry. It's also an important partner of India as far as the gems and jewelry sector is concerned. So these are, the traditional areas where both sides have been working. And I see greater engagement in all these sectors in the coming, years. Where we see, of course, are the newer areas where we can work together. And as has happened with other ASEAN countries, Thailand has also moved in a very big way as far as digital services are concerned. And therefore, this promises, a lot of opportunities in sunrise sectors such as Fintech, in biotechnology, in digital infrastructure and connectivity, as well as, of course, artificial intelligence. Both the countries have very similar policy initiatives, such as Digital India in India and, of course, Digital Thailand, the Startup India program and the Startup Thailand program. And they could both be used for promoting mutual collaboration. There are several leading Indian IT companies which are present here in Thailand, and they are involved in projects in various sectors, including cybersecurity, in aviation, e-commerce, etc. As far as the e-payment system is concerned, again, we have negotiations which are going on between the National ITMX company of Thailand and the NPCI regarding the modalities for arrangements for accepting of payments by RuPay cards in Thailand. And once that is implemented, this will open up opportunities for expanding collaboration in the field of fintech between the two countries. Emergence of new technologies coupled with efforts in combating climate change is also opening up newer avenues for the transportation industry, especially while we all make a shift towards electric and hybrid cars and other vehicles. There is good scope of collaboration in the e-vehicle sector, as Thailand plans e-vehicles to contribute to at least 30% of the total domestic vehicle production by 2030. And it is also considering both tax and non-tax incentives for manufacturers. Thailand 4.0 again focuses on transforming Thailand into a value-based economy built upon science, technology, innovation, and creativity. And to this end, Thailand has identified existing high potential industries, which includes the next generation automotives, smart electronics, affluent medical and wellness tourism, agriculture and biotechnology, and food for the future. And in additional, another 5 new targeted industries are automation and robotics, aviation and logistics, biofuels and biochemicals, and digital and medical hub. So these have been identified as part of the new engines of growth, which will drive Thailand into the future. So there is good scope for collaboration in the field of R&D, science and technology, particularly the medical science and biotechnology. Our offer of 100 slots under the India Asean program for fellowships in IITs is also a very attractive one. And we are trying to, encourage more young Thai academics to avail of this scholarship. Now, we're also trying to see how, Indian companies could also collaborate with Thailand under its Eastern Economic Corridor and software parks, because that is very attractive for many companies, particularly those which are working in the IT sector. Now, another point to note is that Thailand is actually an aging society, and by 2040, 17 million Thais will be 65 years or older. So as the number of elderly persons grow, who will become vulnerable to diseases, etc., there will be a growing need for medical equipment and devices. So Indian industry can either set up joint ventures in Thailand for manufacture, or they can benefit in the form of exports. Thailand itself has great strength in some very durable medical equipment, including, of course, in hospital beds and wheelchairs, which are of very good quality and very sturdy. And of course, it is facing a lot of price competition from other countries, but it has a lot of strengths in this area. Speaking of e-commerce itself, of course, Thailand is working very hard on aspects such as same-day delivery, for example. And the Thai Post is doing a lot of interesting work while it's trying to compete with private players in this area, including the introduction of, for example, cross-belt sorters, which can sort out, up to 6.5 million parcels per month. There's also a great deal of interest in Thailand in what is called as conversation commerce, which is perhaps the next generation of e-commerce. There was a recent study, in fact, which was made by the Boston Consulting Group on this subject, which revealed that 40% of the respondents in Thailand said that they regularly engaged in c-commerce transactions. So that was the highest such response among the countries surveyed. So perhaps Indian companies could look at placements of their products on such social media platforms, including Line, etc., which are highly popular in Thailand. As we look at, of course, the fragility of the global supply chains, which have been exposed by the pandemic. So the vision of self-reliant India announced by our Prime Minister resonates very well with Thailand's own self-sufficiency model. And our thrust on revitalizing Make in India for achieving self-reliance has been able to, in fact, attract a lot of attention of policymakers and businesses in Thailand. Several leading Thai industries in automotive and auto parts, infrastructure, and real estate, food processing, and aquaculture are already present in India and are keen to expand their businesses and entering into partnership with local industries. So while COVID-19 pandemic has severely impacted the tourism and the hospitality sector, gradual reopening of the countries once again will of course revive interest in tourism. Prior to COVID-19, there were 17 Indian cities which were connected to Phuket and Bangkok, and we had 300 flights per week. And in 2019, at 1.9 million tourists from India, we were one of the largest source markets for Thai tourism. So there is a lot of interest in it, and we can also collaborate with Thailand in the development of our island resorts, especially as Andaman and Nicobar opens up for island tourism as well as for cruise tourism. Speaking of connectivity, of course, we're all looking forward to the early implementation of the India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway project, which of course is complete from both the sides, but we are awaiting the completion of the highway in the Myanmar portion of it. Once that opens up, it will be a game changer as far as both India, ASEAN, or India, Southeast Asia trade is concerned, and particularly, of course, Thailand will become the gateway to mainland ASEAN. There's a lot of work which is still needs to be done, including in the logistics sector. So in this, I think, collaboration with Thailand will definitely be in order. So as we close, I would like to once again, point to the various areas which are more or less in line with what has been said by my colleagues themselves. Logistics, e-commerce, the automotive, smart vehicles, electronic vehicles, and of course, the agricultural sector, including marine products, where we have a lot of opportunities. And as both countries take steps towards this, I think Ambassador Patarath herself said that we could also use the Make in Thailand for India, and as well as for Thailand and for the rest of ASEAN. So indeed, it presents a wonderful opportunity. With that, I close, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thanks. Very interesting presentation. Very interesting to hear also about the 5 new engines of growth identified for the future in Thailand. And we absolutely, of course, agree with you that trade and commerce is the core of India-Thailand relationships over the years, and there is so much more that we can do to boost it, our economic partnership, and we will continue to deepen our partnership in traditional areas of partnership, as you talked about, marine products, automotive, gems, jewelry, and also some very good new areas that you spoke on, be it from the digital areas like Fintech and AI, to e-vehicles, very interesting, biofuels and biochemicals, digital health, logistics. So it's a huge gamut. We'd like to work with you very, very closely and see how we can get Indian industry much more engaged than what it has been so far in some of the newer areas that have emerged in today's discussion. So thank you very much, Madam Ambassador, for that very wonderful presentation. With that, may I move to our Ambassador of India to Vietnam, Mr. Pranay Verma.
Thank you. Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Banerjee. I'll be short. I know time and patience both will be running thin, but by this time that Vietnam normally comes in the alphabetical order of speakers. I will focus on the opportunities for collaboration in sunrise sectors. I think that was the advisory from CII, and I'll just focus on that. Clearly, there are opportunities for collaboration in sunrise sectors. In this context of COVID-19 pandemic, where there is enhanced relevance of technological, digital connection, digital infrastructure, and technology in general, both to overcome the disruptions of pandemic as well as to seek post-COVID recovery. I think there is a renewed interest in our economic engagement with Vietnam on these sectors. For Vietnam, I can only mention that India-Vietnam relations have always been an important engagement for us in the Indo-Pacific sector. I mean, as part of our Act East policy, as well as the Indo-Pacific vision, Vietnam is one of the key partners. And we are seeing the economic component of that engagement also growing in salience. I mean, our trade figures have been now consistently been over $10 billion even during times when we had disruptions caused by the COVID. So it's a forward-looking economic engagement, and there is much hope and promise. I think as two rapidly emerging economies and two aspirational societies with youthful demography and a shared vision of sustainable and inclusive development, there is also a natural emphasis that we share on innovation and entrepreneurial spirit. And these create natural synergies between India and Vietnam. The other important foundation for our future engagement is also our ambitions to reach $5 trillion of GDP over the next few years, while Vietnam has a vision of becoming a high-income developed economy by 2045, which was enshrined in their party resolution, party congress this year. So clearly these are creating the new opportunities, including in sunrise sectors, as both countries are increasingly driven by the promise of new technologies and innovation and digitization to deliver economic prosperity, good governance, and people's empowerment. Both India and Vietnam also have very ambitious vision for IT and Industry 4.0. In India, we have this Digital India mission, which kind of mirrors in Vietnam's own vision of digital society as part of their very ambitious national digital transformation strategy, in which Vietnam looks to building 20% of its total GDP out of digital economy by 2025 and 30% by 2030. So clearly there is a very ambitious vision for their digital ecosystem development. And that creates a lot of new opportunities for our businesses. And some of it has already been spurred by COVID-19, when we are looking at bridging those physical gaps through use of technology in areas like IT and IT-enabled services. As part of our development partnership with Vietnam, this aspect has now become more prominent. For example, we in 2019 started this eITech program, and that was eITech during times when we could actually physically travel to each other. So it was eITech in a context where we wanted to connect centers of excellence on two sides through the e-medium. And there we had, Vietnam was one of the 4 countries where we launched this special course, which IIT Madras partnered with the Vietnam National University in big data analytics. So quite cutting edge technology. So that was a kind of a precursor to the vision of having deeper inroads into these emerging sectors in terms of our business cooperation as well. I mean, just for a background, I would like to mention that Vietnam was one of the countries we gave supercomputer in 2013. So technology has been a very important, if not so well talked about, I mean, so highly talked about aspect of our engagement, but it has always been there. We are seeing a growing emergence of Indian and Vietnamese IT companies in each other's country. We need to scale it up, of course, and also include IT SMEs in this engagement. In areas like IT solutions and services, We have companies like HCL and Tech Mahindra who are actually expanding their footprints in Vietnamese market, different provinces of Vietnam. And in capacity building, in IT training, companies like NIIT, Aptech have been there for quite some time. So there is some familiarity with our IT businesses in Vietnam. I think we need to scale it up, and there is a natural momentum for that in the post-COVID phase. And these are also unlocking potentials in newer areas like e-commerce, fintech. We are happy to see startup fintech companies now from India now looking at Vietnam for expanding their footprint in Southeast Asia. We have some Bangalore-based companies who have opened operations in Vietnam recently. So startup itself is Vietnam also has a very promising startup community, and I think this is a great point of engagement for us, for our youth and for our businesses. Smart city is also something that Vietnam is placing a lot of emphasis on, and as part of our engagement, they have proposed some projects for smart city component procurements and concept development as part of our $1 billion line of credit in digital connectivity that was announced 2018. So these are some of the focus areas of our engagement with Vietnam right now. We are also looking at, as part of our S&T engagement, to identify specific cooperation in biotech and nanotechnology. All these are areas where Vietnam is looking at scaling up its research and investment. IT in healthcare services also. Our COVID was one of the things that we shared with Vietnam as they developed their own app for COVID-related healthcare services. But I see there'll be an emerging demand for technology in healthcare sector for countries like Vietnam, and where we can actually look at future cooperation potential. So I think there is a lot for us to learn from each other's experiences, policies, and enabling environment to develop collaborative partnerships. Technology will become an important component of our comprehensive strategic partnership with Vietnam. And I hope these discussions, like the one that CII has taken initiative to hold today, will pave the way for more concrete ideas. We'll be ready to help in whatever way we can for all your initiatives. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Verma. As always a pleasure to hear you. And as you mentioned, indeed, India-Vietnam relationship is forward-looking, is a forward-looking partnership, and very interesting to note Vietnam's ambitious plan to make 20% of GDP focusing on digital economy and an ecosystem by 2025 you mentioned, and taking it up to 30% by 2030. That's where I think it's interesting, and that's where the opportunity lies. And we'll work on through that lens pretty much to our membership. This is a very, very important and a good input that we have got. We have also, I noted your areas, and I'm sure we're going to work on it, on the space that you talked about, which are opportunities like digital or digital infrastructure or technology, IT, ITES, e-commerce, phenomenal opportunity in the startups area, and of course smart cities and IT and healthcare. So all of this combined, I just see a huge opportunity today, and we will engage with you to understand how we can really get more of our companies more deeply entrenched and have this strong B2B connect. Your leadership would be of great value and importance. Thank you very much once again. With that, may I move to our last speaker today, the Deputy Chief of Mission at the Indian Embassy in Myanmar, Ms. Nabanita Chakravarti.
Good afternoon from Myanmar, and thank you CII. Am I audible?
Yeah,
okay, right. I'm being the last speaker. I'm aware that most of the listeners would be pretty much at the end of the tether for your patience, but given the circumstances in Myanmar, I would like to highlight both the challenges and the opportunities that this country provides. ASEAN is central to India's Act East policy, and Myanmar is the only ASEAN country having land border with India. As such, Myanmar can serve as a springboard for India's access to ASEAN economies by land. The completion of India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral gateway, as just pointed out by Madam Ambassador from Thailand, for which the government of India funded work in Tamu, Chigon, Kalewa section is going on, has the potential to connect till Vietnam via Thailand and Cambodia. We also have sea connectivity with Myanmar. The trilateral highway, as well as the Kaladan multimodal transit transport project, once started, would bring India's northeast states closer to Myanmar as well as the ASEAN. The Sitwe port under the, again, Kaladan multimodal project is expected to start functioning by mid next year. The tariff structure for Sitwe port is being examined to make it attractive for the users. Both India and Myanmar are also finalizing the text for the coastal shipping agreement that will facilitate direct shipping and eliminate the delay in transit and circuitous route. You must be aware that an Indian private company, Adani, has invested about $290 million to build a container terminal in Yangon that is expected to be completed by mid-December this year. The existing infrastructure at the borders of both the countries needs to be improved. This is a big area this is a big potential because recently when the Myanmar government approached us for import of COVID medicines through land route for the people of their northwestern part, this was an opportunity missed due to lack of improved border structure in both sides. We are also working towards early operationalization of border huts that will provide a livelihood to the people living in bordering areas. The opportunities that COVID pandemic has created, while it has posed several challenges, there are also certain opportunities which we need to tap the potential of. It has also exposed the vulnerability of overdependence on supply of raw materials on a particular source or region. For example, the flourishing garment industry of Myanmar that was entirely dependent on China for raw materials came to a standstill during the initial days of COVID, when all supplies from China were stopped. This highlighted the need for diversification of sourcing. Now, on the political development in Myanmar early this year had its impact felt on all aspects of the country. This country is going through economic slump, and according to World Bank, its economy may shrink by about 18% this year due to the double whammy of COVID as well as the political change. However, in this current political change, though many Western companies have adopted a posture of wait and watch and have not really pulled out of Myanmar. Hence, Indian businesses has the opportunity to carve a space. Indian companies having long-term perspectives on Myanmar can explore the possibility to fill in the vacuum, if any, created. There is one aspect I'm sure Indian businesses are aware of. This is regarding the sanctions imposed by the US. The important aspect in this regard would be to ensure that contracts are not concluded with sanctioned entities and payments are undertaken in a manner to not to make them vulnerable to OFAC action. Indian pharma companies have already a dominant presence in Myanmar, and Indian pharma products have wide acceptance among the people due to high quality as well as the price compared to other countries' products. Indian pharma sector has a market share of about 38%, and about 50 Indian pharma companies like Zydus, Dr. Reddy's, Cipla, Sun Pharma, etc., that have presence in Myanmar. Zydus, in fact, has invested about $23 million in a plant at a special economic zone in Talawa. India has an excellent record in information and communication technology and is successfully implementing many digitization projects in India. This is an area where India and Myanmar can cooperate, especially in sectors, in industries like e-commerce, digitization, telemedicine, etc. Myanmar, because of its political situation, is facing a challenge in getting foreign exchange, especially US dollar, to meet its import and other requirements. This is mainly of course, due to the political change, it resulted in withdrawal of many companies and decline in foreign FDI and foreign aid and soft loans. Another aspect that opens up for us is barter trade. And barter trade and trade through local currencies can help to a great extent to overcome the challenges that the business challenges. Many Indian business houses purchase agri-commodities from Myanmar. This is an opportunity for Indian companies to enhance their export by exchanging their manufactured products against import of agro-commodities. In June this year, in fact, India and Myanmar signed a MOU to import tur dal and urad dal for the next 5 years. There is also a proposal for setting a local currency settlement and mechanism to facilitate bilateral trade. We do hope this will soon materialize. With this, I think I have highlighted fairly the challenges as well as the opportunities that we can tap in this country. It is a long route, but I'm sure perseverance and tenacity from Indian business will take us a long way in this. With this, I would like to conclude and thank you so very much for the opportunity and wish you all the best for your deliberations. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Nabhanita Chakraborty, for that very, very important update from Myanmar, if I can say. And it's very important for the business to know as to what's really happening there. And this really gives us a lot of understanding as to how we navigate through the challenges that we have. And I'm sure we will be working very closely with you and the embassy to see how these are, go through these times in a manner which will really, of course, open up at certain points in time many opportunities for our companies. So with that, we are actually coming almost to an end of this outstanding session, if I can say. Very, very rich in directions, very rich in ideas. And for us at the CII, we value these inputs that we receive from our ambassadors. And today, much of our work, our international work is of CII and the companies, our firms, our member companies, much of it has been really shaped by the inputs and the partnership that we have received over many years from our embassies, from our high commissioners and ambassadors. So that has been of great, great value to us. And today was no exception. In fact, it really gives us a huge agenda in terms of how we will work and how we will work in this very important region of ASEAN. Really have no words to thank each of our ambassadors and high commissioner and the embassies. This particular forum would not have been possible without your collaboration, your participation. We had explored the sunrise sectors and what a wide array of suggestions have come really for us to work on today. We really value that. And this session has given us a absolute comprehensive agenda, if one can say, for the entire ASEAN work plan of the CII and its member firms. And I'm sure for the government, this would also be a great, very useful when we work together. I do not really wish to try even or attempt to sum up the very, very important points that really came up. We have a very important session now coming up back to back with this, with our Honorable External Affairs Minister, the Foreign Minister of Singapore, and the Secretary General of ASEAN. I hope you will be able to spare a little more time to join that session. And once again, thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for making this so successful. Thank you.
Thanks.